Hello, friends and listeners, party people. Welcome back to another episode of Party XP. I'm your host, Lakan, and once again, this is a solo episode. Jeff has been very busy taking care of his son. He's been sick the last couple of days. So, yeah, he's being responsible and, making sure his son's okay. So go ahead and show some support to Jeff on the social medias. I'm sure he'd appreciate it and hope his son feels much better soon. Nothing serious, but of course, it's focused on being a dad versus this, being our hobby, side gig kind of thing. Perfectly fine. I can't shut up anyway, so I'm sure I can figure out how to stall for 30 minutes, if you want to call it that, and hopefully pump out an episode for you guys for this week. We've been pretty busy. Both of us have been, in general, right? He's got, obviously, dad duties, his job, and then he's been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes in regards to the podcast and trying to get some stuff going. Especially on the YouTube channel, he's been very busy. He's had a couple episodes come out recently of him playing through the Kirby games. I know he's got some other games he wants to play for the YouTube channel as well. If you guys go ahead and check that out, we'd really appreciate that as well. So again, this can be a solo episode. These episodes are usually a little more, not unstructured, but I guess a little more free-flowing. I got a couple topics that I kind of want to go over and things I want to talk about, and maybe even just rant on and maybe even come to some conclusions on. So I hope you've all been doing well. Go ahead and get comfortable, grab a snack and a drink, and let's go on with this episode. I've got a bunch of stuff coming up. This is kind of getting into the later part of the summer, right? We were kind of full swing. Been going to the beach a lot. Been enjoying that. The weather's been very nice up here, aside from all the rain. But anytime we get a clear weekend, I've been going down to the shore. I've gone a couple times already this year. It's been a good time. Biking and just enjoying myself and trying to get, keep myself active and stuff. And speaking of the fact that it's summer, I'm surprised that we've actually got an event coming up. I'm not surprised, but I guess a little bit thrown off because of the fact that Anime NYC is now in August. It used to be in November, a couple weeks after New York Comic Con. So I guess just due to limitations or maybe just, availability or something, they decided to move it up into August. I guess to kind of move some space and kind of clear it out for some more other stuff happening around that time and give themselves a little bit of separation. So Anime NYC is coming up. I'm really looking forward to this one. I couldn't unfortunately get tickets to the Hololive concerts that are happening the same weekend. I have some friends who are going to it, so that's really cool. I hope they have a good time. I did pay for the virtual ticket so I can at least watch the stream, and then the VOD comes out later down the line or the Blu-rays, whatever. So I'm gonna pick those up as well for myself. But I'm really looking forward to those. One is the World Tour, where they have talent from all three of the major branches. All three of the branches, right? The Hololive Indonesia, Japan, and EN. They're going to be performing all on stage together. And then there's the other Hololive EN concert. So Hololive EN had their first concert here in the U.S. earlier this year in California. And it's cool to see that, Hololive EN is starting to kind of get to a point where they can have dedicated concerts specifically here in the U.S. Very, very cool, really exciting time for us, right, as fans, where we get to watch the talents that we really enjoy watching. We see them perform during HoloFest and these other show up on these live concerts for the Japanese or Indonesian talents, but you get to see all of the EN talents here is very, very cool, very enjoyable. I'm hoping that this kind of opens up the door to more and more things because, again, having that one concert sell out very quickly in California, and then these three concerts selling out within minutes, basically, as soon as those queues opened up. I remember for basically both of the concerts, right? So technically, one concert is the Hololive World Tour, the other one is the Hololive EN concert, and that has 2 dates. I got in I refreshed it when they went live, but I just luck of the draw, right? I got placed super deep down that queue. I remember being 6,000 or 7,000 deep in the first one, and then for the Hololive EN concert, I was at 11,000 or something. It was just not gonna happen because those venues, or at least the capacity, I think was only couple thousand for basically all of them. The King's Theater is only 3,000 a pop, I believe. But I have friends who are going, so I'm hoping they have a good time. And anyone else who is attending those concerts, good on you guys. Good. Congratulations on getting a little bit of luck of the draw there. I'll be supporting the EN talents in my own way as much as I possibly can. With Anime NYC, I spent a lot of my time in Artist Alley. I'm pretty sure I've covered that before in the previous convention episode that I've had with Buffa talking about New York Comic Con and I guess our experience with conventions in general. Same with Jeff, I think Jeff Fernandez as well too, where I had him talk about conventions and stuff like that. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Artist Alley in general, even more so the last couple of years because now that I have friends who are artists who are regularly vending there or work for other production studios, Sometimes I'll even hang around and help promote the booth a little bit. You know what I mean? Like if I'm already wearing or carrying a piece of their merch, then I'll just stay there a little bit and kind of just chat, with random people walking by, customers, and chat them up. I'm like, hey, by the way, guys, check it out. This hoodie that I got, bam, these guys made it right here. Cool. Yeah, so a little bit of a shout out for some of my friends here. My friends at Isekai Crew, they are regularly vending at a lot of anime conventions and stuff like that. I know they've been all around the country at this point. They've been really killing it. Big up to the two of them, Bang and ZJ. They've been killing it. They've been really putting themselves out there, and they started off with prints and stickers and peekers, moved up to like full on clothing with like t-shirts, sweaters, bucket hats, even like a sling bag, a really nice sling bag, all with a very cool anime aesthetic. Yeah, they've been killing it. So good ups on them. And they do all of their own art. So go ahead, guys, check them out. Isekai Crew. They got their own website. I always enjoy seeing my friends succeeding in kind of their own personal endeavors, and it's always very very cool to see that. Then my boy Elvin, who his brand Moe and Toast, he's been killing it too. Big graphic design guy. He's the guy who did the art for Jeff's and my cartoonified headshots. He also has his own website with merch of, again, anime inspired designs, t-shirts, hoodies, sweaters, all that stuff. So go ahead and check him out. He also got his own website, Moe and Toast. Check him out, guys. So yeah, man, like looking forward to Anime NYC. Get to see a bunch of friends there because again, it's also a bit of a smaller convention in comparison to or to New York Comic Con. So a little bit more breathing room, a little more. You can actually like hang out and talk to people without feeling super super cramped or being in the way or whatever. Just it's just cool to see a bunch of like artists that I also follow and stuff on Instagram or Twitter, and a bunch of them are actually going to be at Anime NYC this year. So really looking forward to that one. There's an artist named Rosary who's done some art for some big high profile VTubers and she even had her own art exhibit in Taiwan, I believe, earlier this year, which is very, very cool. It's cool to see her really, really blowing up. And, I actually bought her art book, her birthday collection. So her art book's The Reflections 2. This is the second one. Unfortunately, when I saw her at NYC 2 years ago, her book had just sold out at her booth. But I bought, I bought like two standees from her and I think a keychain as well too. So, I occasionally check into her streams as well too when she streams on Twitch. She has done some stuff for like Iron Mouse. She's done a lot of stuff for Hololive and some other mobile games. She does like a lot of art, like is as obviously it's very anime styled. I'm like happy that I get to say that I've been following her for a couple of years now at this point. So yeah, just kind of like that where I get to almost like have like a connection with them, even if they don't know who I am. It's just like I'm glad to know that I've been supporting artists for long enough during the time when they're kind of like right before they blow up. It's very very cool and get to see them really make a name for themselves in the space that they're currently working in. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing a bunch of artists that I follow on whatever social media platform, and then looking forward to discovering some more on top of it as well. It'll be a fun time. And then I guess after at NYC, the next big thing I got is the trip to Serbia, which I may have mentioned in a previous episode. So I'm going to Serbia for a wedding, our friend Tim, and been looking forward to this for a while now. I've already figured out I've already booked my flight, the Airbnb. Obviously, I got like I still got to figure out like what I'm wearing for the wedding, but I've got I stole my friend's itinerary for like not itinerary. I stole his he has he had a Google Excel sheet or whatever of like things to see there, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna be there for a couple of days by myself, so I might as well go check some stuff out. With some of Tim's Serbian friends. Explore, and I just want to try food. That's a big thing for me. Anytime I travel anywhere, even if it's here in the U.S., I always want to try something of like the local specialty or whatever, right? But this is my first trip outside of the U.S. or first flight outside of the U.S. specifically since I was 13. Like I've driven to Canada, but that's we're so close at that point that it's like is it really that different? But I used to fly every other year to the Philippines when I was a kid, and that was a regular thing for me growing up. And just when we got older, life got busier, and we had more activities we had to participate in and stuff like that. So I haven't had a chance to go out to the Philippines since I was a kid, or take any trips outside of the country for that matter, or at least flying out, right? My parents were supposed to come along, my father and my stepmother, but unfortunately some things came up, and now they're gonna be going back home to the Philippines for a little bit instead. But I'm gonna be staying with some friends. A couple of us are coming through from the East Coast people. It's gonna be a good time. I was gonna do 2 3 weeks with my family, but now I'm cutting it down to 1 week. But there's a lot of things for me to see and do and experience over there. So I'm gonna try to cram as much as I possibly can within that week or so. Meet some of Tim's friends, his wife's friends, and just kind of enjoy and take in the culture a little bit. But if it's a good trip, I'm sure I'm gonna go again at one point with my family, and we want to do like Montenegro and Croatia as well too. That's kind of what my parents were expected to do the first time when they were still going to be attending the wedding as well. So I'm hoping that we can try to plan another trip next year after this one, especially if this one goes very well and I enjoy myself. Definitely looking forward to going back there. Hope after the wedding next month in September. There's a bunch of like museums and castles and nightlife apparently that my friends recommend out there. So yeah, I'm looking forward to experiencing what they've got. After that trip to Serbia for the wedding, I've got another wedding, but it'll be here in Jersey, so that's cool. Nice and easy. I don't have to worry about traveling too much. I got called up to actually to be a groomsman for that one, and just due to some unforeseen circumstances of other groomsmen having to back out due to timings of like they're having a baby at the time or something like that. So, but I really appreciate the fact that one of my friends, my friend. Came to me and asked me to be a groomsman for him, and I'm really looking forward to it. I actually had not really been a groomsman in too many weddings until my brother's wedding last year, and I remember for that one, I tried my best to be as useful as I possibly could, especially since my brother was underwater a lot of the time. So I was staying in touch with my sister in law and trying to get the suits, figured out, trying to get suits fitted or, trying to pick out suits and stuff like that. We had to show up and try to help out as much as we possibly could, look at a couple options, and just try some things out and see how we felt about them or how we looked in them and stuff like that. So yeah, I had to try to be useful there. And then Jeff Fernandez's wedding was later on in the year, and I was a groomsman for that one too. And again, like this one was a little bit hectic because we're worrying about people coming through internationally, and a lot of stuff going on. Big wedding. He's got a big family, a lot of family friends. So we were just there trying to keep Jeff calm and not make him lose his mind, and just try to have a good time and try to keep it positive. And again, like and so far, but like all those weddings have been fantastic so far, and we were very happy to be part of both of those, and I really appreciate my brother and my friend to have me involved on their special day, and I really appreciate that. And I'm hoping that they had a really good time. And we've talked about it before, but it's always just like I just want to make sure that everyone's trying to enjoy themselves even during the hecticness of the day of the wedding. And then the the week of the wedding, like after the wedding has happened, 4 days later, I'm going to be attending, or 5 days later, I'm going to be going to New York Comic Con. So again, you might have heard Buffa and I talking about us maybe possibly getting kind of burnt out on New York Comic Con. I mean, I still want to say that I enjoy it overall as an experience, but like I think that some of the stuff that like I used to do before, like degenning and getting up super early and getting to the city, I'm just kind of over it now at this point. I kind of just want to go there and enjoy myself and check stuff out and just keep it really relaxed. I'll be attending Saturday, so that'll be the busiest day usually. But there is a part of it where it's like, oh, the excitement of the crowd and all that stuff, right? That's always good. Um, but the annoying part is like when you're trying to move across the hall and convention center, and you're shoulder to shoulder with people, right? You can't walk any faster because you can't really cut through anybody because it's so packed. So there's that, but I'm still like looking forward to it. I've met some very cool content creators and artists and voice actors and actors in the last couple of years that have been very very exciting for me to have done. Right, like I met Dante Bosco, and I got to get him sign my Avatar: The Last Airbender art book. I met Tim Curry last year as well, and that was very exciting for me as a longtime fan of his. I met the Trash Taste Boys, obviously like a major podcast, and the guys who talk about like anime culture and Japanese culture in general. Very exciting, and it's kind of cool to see these guys and really be like kind of like meet a lot of like the content creators and people who I get to watch on a regular basis, and then actually get to meet them and actually like talk to them like regular human beings. It's very very cool. It's a nice experience, and especially the last couple of years. Also, I bought a couple prints from some artists who work in the industry. Where I bought some stuff from like the Batman comic that follows or that continues the Batman animated series from the '90s. I bought some as well from the artist who did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Power Rangers collaboration or crossover comic book. So I got that. Also got those signed as well too. And I think that another thing too as well, as I mentioned before, in terms of anime NYC, is that I really enjoy Artist Alley. The last couple of years have been a little bit different because they've been focusing more on people who are currently industry artists, which is still cool. But I really enjoyed finding smaller digital illustrators, who again I tend to find them on like Instagram or Twitter. Or sometimes they stream on Twitch or YouTube as a doing art streams or even as a VTuber sometimes. And I would like to meet them in person and support them directly myself, and by buying prints and stuff like that. So the energy has been a little bit different the last couple of years in terms of what is an Artist Alley. Again, there are plenty of industry artists and creators that I still really enjoy, and I'm glad to meet them there. Even if I buy like a remark or a small custom piece of art, they sketch like a sketch or something, it's very cool. But again, like I like finding smaller artists and smaller creators and kind of following them as they blow up in terms of popularity and kind of the work that they do. And just to reel it back a little bit about traveling, I mentioned before about flying to Serbia, and my first time traveling really since out of the country by plane since I was a kid. Do you guys like traveling, like specifically flying? Because I'm a big road trip guy. I like driving up to Boston. Drove up to Chicago for my brother's graduation from boot camp with my family. I drive down a couple hours down to like DC or Virginia, and I even drove to Virginia Beach last summer. I like road trips. I'm personally a road trip guy, especially because there's so much to explore, even here in the U.S., right? I've been to 38 now of the 50 U.S. states. And, I still want to knock off the last couple that I haven't been to yet. But, I like road trips. But flying is a bit of a different beast for me. I've flown once or twice now, like for each of the last couple of years at this point. Like since 2019 or 2018, I've taken a flight somewhere. Not 2020 because that was the lockdown year, so I didn't really do anything that year. But I flew out to Portland, I flew out to Vegas, I flew out to Washington, I flew out to California. And I'm not big on flying just because like I'm a bit of a wider guy, so cramming myself into those seats is not exactly the greatest experience for me. One thing though is I'm shorter. I'm 5'6", so yeah, I'm a short king. Can I call myself a short king, or is that somebody else that to call me a short king? How does that work? I don't know if it's weird claiming the title of short king on myself. Is that weird? Whatever. So anyway, yeah, like so I don't fly a whole lot. Again, like once or twice a year. Like I have friends who travel pretty often, like every couple months, because they have their significant others are in other states finishing school or something, or that's where they live. And they fly out for a weekend or two, or a couple days, and then come back, kind of thing, right? I even that, like, that's like more than what I would do in a year. Again, I fly like once or twice a year. It feels weird asking friends about travel tips. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's not a conversation that you usually have. It's more usually it's like I feel like you're in the middle of a conversation, and then someone's like, "Oh, I have a tip for you," blah blah blah. So they'll drop some knowledge if you're mid conversation. It doesn't feel like a thing where I'm just like, "Hey guys, do you have any tips for me?" It feels weird. I don't know if I'm just being like overthinking it or whatever, because I'm sure that my friends wouldn't really care all that much, but but yeah, like so. I tend to be like I feel like I have some bad travel habits personally. Like I'm an overpacker. Like even if I do like road trips with Jeff Hernandez, like we go to Boston or we go to Syracuse. I remember I went to Rochester once for my friend Ron's graduation from med school, and I was only there for like a weekend. We'll be there for like maybe 3 or 4 days at most. But I'm packing for like a full week. But I think that's just because I'm like always worried about messing up a shirt, or if I want to go out at night, have something a little bit nicer to wear, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So like I feel like I overpack in general. I tend to be the over-prepared guy than not. I remember when I went to Vegas, it was the first time I packed, I think, just right. And that was last November, where I only packed for the wedding and the 1.5 days that I was there for. Like, not included, and like including the flight as well, too, right? Your travel clothes. So That was the first time I ever cut back really, really all that much, I guess. And for this trip to Serbia, like it's a flight out of the country. I'm going for a wedding, so I have to worry about having dress clothes and specific outfits for the days I'm going to be out there for. And I know the weather's going to be pretty nice around that time, according to Tim, the guy whose wedding is going to be. He said the weather there is pretty similar to the weather we have here in Jersey, so it should be like kind of warm still in that like mid-September kind of temperature, so not too bad. Maybe like hoodie weather at night, but I run hot, so I will still rock like a t-shirt and shorts, so I have to try to figure out my outfits and how to pack those still. And also, like, I'm always worried about like oversized luggage or carry-ons or whatever personal bags. So I measured it out. My luggage should fit, or my carry-on luggage should fit, and my personal item backpack should still be okay. It should be. Again, I'm like paranoid about it. So if you guys have any tips, shoot them to us on the maybe we'll make it the comment section for this one instead of having like a poll or something. Maybe I have some comments for us. Leave us a comment for what your travel tips are in terms of like packing, stuff like that. Gear you bring, gear not to bring. I've fallen down a rabbit hole of this YouTube channel called Pack Hacker, and I've been like looking at gear that is like multi-purpose, so I'm not carrying like two individual items for two of the similar-ish tasks. You know what I mean? So stuff like that. So I've been trying to figure out how to downsize my gear or my carry, I guess, when I'm on the plane. One thing that I think about though when I travel is how do I entertain myself? So, flying out to California, Vegas, Portland, Oregon, Washington, I those are 5-hour flights, so they're not crazy, right? So I'll spend maybe an hour or two playing some games, and then maybe I'll throw on like a 2-hour, 3-hour movie or whatever. And that'll just distract me and kind of get me going, right? I tend not to be one to sleep on planes because usually I'm using the flight to shift my sleep. At least that's how it's been kind of like for me, how it's lined up anyway, in terms of my travel. So how do you guys keep yourself preoccupied? I know a lot of people. My stepmom when they go, my dad when they go to the Philippines, they share an iPad, earbuds, right? And they just watch a movie together or just sleep because obviously that's a long flight. We're talking like 18, 21 hours, whatever the hell it is. And they travel every other year to the Philippines if I remember correctly, or maybe even every year. At least one of them does anyway. For them, I feel like they're kind of veterans now at this point, and because they've been doing it for so long. They're much older than me. They have more experience with flying in general. I've been like looking up like travel tips. I have plenty of friends who've traveled, to go see their significant others, or have just gone abroad recently, for a vacation or for a wedding or something like that. I got friends who went to Spain and France recently. So, and when I talk about my friends about traveling, they talk about their experiences, but like I kind of get hung up on like what do I do when I'm stuck on the boring part of it, right? Like how do I distract myself during the actual traveling part before actually getting to explore the area that I'm, ending up in. What should I be bringing for entertainment when I travel? So I know that like, back in the day when I was a kid, Gabe and I would bring like a CD player and a Game Boy, like, with a game that we could play over and over again, or even like an RPG. Something that really could really take care of our time while we're kind of just sitting around the airports or on the plane. I'm sure that the Switch, when that came out, it kind of revolutionized how people take their enjoyment, right? Like obviously, we can also talk about like the DS console family of console. We can also talk about the DS family of consoles. Having those more console like experiences on the go, right? Even the PSP or the Vita. I'm sure the Switch was like a big change for a lot of people. I remember last time I flew, I saw plenty of people playing with a Switch still, or even a couple of people I saw playing with a Steam Deck, and that's most likely I'll be doing the same thing. On my trip to Vegas last year, I spent an hour and a half waiting for my flight, and then I just played on my Steam Deck and hung out for a little bit in the waiting area near the gate, and then on the plane I played a little bit of Sekiro, and then I played once I noticed my battery was draining really hard, I switched over to playing some more simpler indie games that are very still still very enjoyable for me to play. So small games like Slay the Spire that I play on all the time still, or like Dicey Dungeons or Peggle. these smaller roguelikes that I can really just kind of pick up and put down. Then maybe I get bored, and then I end up throwing on like a movie. I ended up watching The Batman on my phone. I don't tend to sleep on flights unless I'm super super tired. And I'm sure that not every night that I'm going to be out in Serbia, I'm going to be out and about. I mean, I'm going to be out for no matter what, at least during the day. But I'm sure at night, I'm sharing an Airbnb with one of my friends. But I'm sure there's going to be a point where, like, maybe we're just kind of hanging out and just chilling, and I want to play some video games. Nothing wrong with that, in my opinion, even if when you're traveling somewhere. I was thinking about it recently as well too. Just because of the size of the Steam Deck, is like I think about the previous handhelds, right? The Switch is obviously smaller than Steam Deck, and then I think about a couple years ago, and especially the last couple of days, because I bought a new 3DS, like not a new one, but like the model, the new 3DS, the one that was the upgraded one with the circle pad. And I look at this as like in terms of like handheld and portability. Obviously, it's much much tinier, right? It's way smaller than a Steam Deck. It's about half the size of like the size of a Switch in terms of like width, I guess. Maybe a little bit taller, but overall, like, this is much more portable, right? This is like I guess comparable to like when it's closed up is about the size of my phone, without like a game controller on my phone. So I was just kind of like thinking about traveling and how I used to entertain myself as a kid, especially where I remember Gabe and I, we used to have a Game Boy with us. So we'd always be playing something. So we'd be playing Pokemon together or playing, like, I don't know, Super Mario, anything to distract us, obviously, because we're on a plane for, 18 hours or whatever as a kid. I've also got a couple of ideas that I would like to have a conversation with Jeff about in terms of video games and stuff like that, where I've had this rattling in my brain now for a little while. So a little bit of backstory. I have a bunch of friends who I remember when we were talking about when Sonic Mania came out, how it was like a different team that wasn't even part of Sonic team that made that game. It was a bunch of fans essentially, from my understanding, and then some of them branched out and made a different game. Penny's Big Breakaway, right? That came out, and my friends were like, "Oh, I wish this was a 3D Sonic game," but in my mind, it's why not just play the game then if the gameplay is relatively similar, right? There's a game called Lunistis, which is kind of like an old school 3D platformer, level based kind of thing. Get to the end kind of gameplay with a lot of like movement mechanics and stuff like that. So, but I pitched to a couple friends, and they were like, "Yeah, I'm not really into it. I kind of want to play a Sonic game." But I was like, "But if the gameplay is relatively similar, then why not just try it out and see if you enjoy it?" And then we kind of got into this other broader conversation about, do you need the titular character to enjoy a game of the same style? Like, I'll continue with the Sonic idea, where there has not been a bunch of really good Sonic 2D games recently. Like, I heard the recent Sonic 2D game was kind of okay at most. And then, Sonic Frontiers before that. And then before that was Sonic Mania, which blew up, obviously. But there's a game called Freedom Planet, which is essentially Sonic the Hedgehog. Just Sonic 1 and 2 and 3, like the OG style of 2D side scroller, fast gameplay kind of thing. But some friends don't want to play that. They want to play a Sonic game, even though it spiritually is a Sonic game. If I even look at other games like I believe the game's called Rosenkreuz. It's a anime styled chibi game, but it plays exactly like the old Mega Man games, Mega Man 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth, right? The pixel style NES Mega Man games. Very difficult, very hard to play, but it is literally just Mega Man. But my friends don't want to play it because they're looking for a Mega Man game, and I'm like, this is a Mega Man game. Yeah, like at its core gameplay, it is exactly that, a Mega Man game. And even games like 20XX or 30XX or Gravity Circuit, which again have 20XX and 30XX are literally roguelikes that are based on the Mega Man X series. Sure, there's randomized bosses and power ups and stuff like that, but the gameplay, the dashing, the wall climbing, the charge shots, you can even play as, a Mega Man S character or a Zero S character, and it plays exactly like Mega Man X series games. But for a lot of people, even if they look exactly like those characters, at a first glance, they're not Mega Man. So I want to have these. I'm probably gonna bring this up in a conversation. Maybe we'll have a full episode on it with Jeff, and we can have a proper discussion on to see what kind of Does the titular character need to be there in that type of game? Versus playing a game pays homage to or uses that game's gameplay style. If the original creators of the game are no longer making said games or making a product that is genuinely enjoyable for the general public to play, what are some alternatives? Well, maybe we'll have a proper discussion with Jeff for that one. That'll be probably a fun topic, I think, to have a talk with Jeff about. One of the last thing I want to cover before I head off for this episode, in terms of like what I've been playing recently, what I'm looking forward to be playing, especially on my upcoming trips. I've been playing the Yakuza series recently. I have finally started playing it. I'm playing Yakuza 0. My friend told me to play that since it's a prequel. I've heard people say play Kiwami and then like the remake of 1 and 2 and go from there. But my friend told me I can kind of do whatever I want and kind of do 1 and 2 and then 0, or just play 0 and then play in order. So I've been playing the Yakuza series again. I'm like 4 chapters in so far. I've really, really been enjoying myself so far. The story is very good. The voice acting is fantastic in that game. All the memes are kind of funny because they're all kind of like front loaded in that game. You can see a good chunk of it right off the bat. And the combat feels really, really good. It's basically a good Shenmue. I don't know if that's controversial or not, but it's kind of exploring an East Asian country and then some fighting. Mechanically, it just feels much smoother, and it definitely has like a lot of the edges kind of smoothed out in terms of at least what I remember from the older Shenmue games to kind of what I'm experiencing currently in Yakuza 0. I've heard the earlier ones are not exactly all that long, so I can kind of bang through a couple of them in like a weekend or two. I've just been busy playing stuff for the podcast, so again, I'm trying to chip away them in like an hour at a time. I've also been playing Rhythm Heaven Megamix on my 3DS. I have a physical copy, and I dumped the ROM and I was able to play as well on my modded 3DS. So I have that one going. I've also been playing some more Kirby stuff. I am almost done with Mass Attack. I'm almost done with Canvas Curse, and then I'll be playing Planet Robobot soon, hopefully after that. And I still have a file of Triple Deluxe that is also almost finished, so I'm trying to finish that one as well. I want to start picking up a couple of these longer titles again. Like for the most part, you guys have heard me over the last over the last 2 years now at this point, right? Talking about how I mostly play roguelikes because they're pick up, put down, easily. I don't have to worry about investing too much time to follow a story because for the most part the story of the games are relatively simple, bare bones. I don't have to worry about that of like remembering where the hell I am. But I'm starting to try to force myself to play some more of these bigger titles instead of just letting my backlog get completely out of control. I want to play like a link between worlds. Again, I haven't played or finished the 2 downloadable 3DS Phoenix Wright games. What is it? Dual Destinies and then something else. So I have those ones as well. I want to start playing. Luckily for those, again, those are pretty easy to pick up, put down because for the most part you can kind of chunk away through those games like chapters, since it is more of a visual novel style game. And I kind of wanted to get back into that style of games because we are finally getting Ace Attorney Investigations 2, the second Miles Edgeworth game, out here in the West finally with the proper translation in the Ace Attorney Investigations collection later this year. I've also been playing the Rogue Prince of Persia. It's still in early access, but the team has been putting out a lot of content recently. I remember the first drop was kind of like, okay, a lot of people beat the most of the game so far already, and then more and more stuff keeps coming out. More and more areas keep getting opened and explored. More weapons. It's very cool. The gameplay feels similar-ish to Dead Cells, which is cool. But then you have the wall run mechanics. Very reminiscent of the Prince of Persia reboot. So you can run up and down walls. You run across, you can run up walls. So the mobility is kind of crazy. It's really, really fun. I'm enjoying the freedom of mobility you have in that game. You can kind of abuse some of the mechanics, but for the most part, it's pretty well tuned already so far. So you can't just like fly everywhere in that game. You kind of have to make sure that there's walls around, or there are ledges to reset for and jump for off of again and keep running upwards. If you really want to do that, you can run up walls, slide down, stuff like that. So it's been really cool to kind of watch that game kind of developing. So I'm looking forward to how that game continues to expand upon what it currently has right now. And I've been getting some decent runs, and I've finally learned a couple of the earlier bosses. So I'm getting further and further. I'm still kind of learning, but the game's been a fun ride so far. And I think that's gonna be it for this episode. So I guess it's a little bit of a shorter episode here. Again, I'm sure I can go for longer, but I wanted to keep myself a little bit focused more than the previous episodes. The previous episode, the last solo episode I had was the Triple I initiative, so that one kept me relatively focused. I was able to talk about specifically what came out during that showcase. The one before that one was a little more free flowing, but I had some like a blueprint of things I wanted to talk about. But I kind of got lost in my own ramblings. So for this one, I'm going to try to keep it a little bit tighter. Again, I kind of bulleted it down to what's coming up currently for me. The events that I'm going to be participating in and the trips I'm going to be going on. And again, like, if you guys have any tips in terms of like what you would recommend for traveling and stuff like that, please again let us know. I'm really curious to see what you guys think about travel and how you guys handle long flights and stuff like that. Again, we'll be back with the next episode with Jeff, hopefully back on, most likely going to be back on. We're going to be going back to a regular format of episodes because we have had stuff we've been playing and we've been slamming through. It's just that the timing, unfortunately, for this one kind of got a little bit tight due to Jeff handling daddy duties. I hope you guys like this episode. Share us with a friend, leave us a review, leave us a like, leave us a comment. Again, I really want comments to see what you guys recommend in terms of travel gear, and share us with a friend. We really appreciate the support, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.
I can't believe I forgot to hit record. I'm such an idiot. I've been talking for 30 minutes.